And the song before the lesson will be 559. That was 559. If it's not a burden to you, let's stand as we sing. Do, mi. Please be seated.
Today's scripture reading comes from Romans chapter 12, verses 9 through 18. Let love be genuine. Abhor what is evil. Hold fast to what is good. Love one another with brotherly affection. Outdo one another in showing honor. Do not be slothful in zeal. Be fervent in spirit. Serve the Lord. Rejoice in hope. Be patient in tribulation. Be constant in prayer. Contribute to the needs of the saints and seek to show hospitality. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse them. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Weep with those who weep. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be haughty, but associate with the lowly. Never be wise in your own sight. Repay no one evil for evil, but give thought to do what is honorable in the sight of all. If possible, so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all.
Good morning, good morning. What a wonderful day the Lord hath made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. So, I will be the first to admit I've had a lot of trouble with this sermon this week. In fact, I have wrote 3 different versions of it. And this morning, as I was still standing out there talking to my wife, and I'm sitting there thinking, which version of this sermon am I going to preach? And that was a very hard thing for me to do. And I'll tell you the 3 that I came up with. Because we're going through still this series here out of 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 17, to where it is the commandments that are given to Christians, and it's fourfold in its thrust. That we are to honor all people, that we are to love the brethren, and that's what we're going to focus on here this morning. The love of the brethren. You see, last week we went through honor all people, and to which many of us said amen. Many of us said, yes, we need to do better as Christians at honoring those who are outside of these doors. At showing them the honor that is due them because they are valuable. They are souls. They are made in the image of God just inasmuch as you and I are made in the image of God. All of us said amen to that fact. I had many people coming and talking to me afterwards saying of how needed that sermon was in our society today. Into which I felt glad about that. But then here this morning, I wonder if we're going to have the same response. Because whenever it talks about love the brethren, that is so vastly interpreted across a broad spectrum of ideas. Many times in our society today, and I say society, let's say the church today, let's make it personal. In the church today, it is easier to love our enemies than the person who is sitting next to me. Many times, we will give more grace to the people who are out the doors than those who show up at your door. We will give more grace to those who are out in the world and they wrong you than to those who seek to do good to you. And you might be saying, well, what are you talking about? And I'm talking about my own experience. Because as a minister in the church, you know what? Whenever I was going through homiletics and preacher in his work, my mentor now, he would tell me, the most wonderful people on earth are the brethren. And the worst people on earth are the brethren. It depends on the day. It depends on the sermon. He says, I have been more loved by the brethren, and I have been hated by the brethren. And he says that right here is the crux of the matter. It's because we lack a genuine love. And he says, perhaps the minister feels it more severely because many in the congregation will view him as an employee rather than a member of the family. To where it's okay to go and attack him because, well, I write his paychecks. It's the same thing that you see the attitude of people who, kind of have that argumentative, aggressive nature with the police force. They say, well, I sign your paychecks. It's that same mentality that's given to ministers at times. You see, it's a sad thing that I had to come to the conclusion of in some of my other works. And I'll tell you about it because I think it's an important note for us to realize that the command to love the brethren is given time in and time again in almost every single epistle because it's not a given. It's not something that just will naturally begin to flourish and birth from us. No, it is something that is worked at. It is something that takes effort, and it is something that is oftentimes overlooked. Because even in just my own personal experience, whenever me and my family, I'll give you one instance. A natural disaster came through a town that we were staying at. And our power went out, and our stove then didn't work. And we had a new baby in the house, and we had an older baby in the house, and so on and so forth. Or we just had one at that time, actually. So we just had one baby in the house, and we couldn't cook any food for them. We couldn't, make anything on the stove for them. We just had, that which was in the pantry that could easily be accessible. But my wife, being the wife that she is, she likes everything fresh. So everything that was fresh easily went to ruin when the fridge went out. So I tell this to the congregation. And I say, hey, my power, it went out. And they said, oh, that's too bad. Our stove's still working. I said, oh, well, that's great. But you know what did happen, though? All of my non-Christian friends invited me over to their house to use their stoves, to be able to give us food, to be able to take care of us. And it was just this sad reality that happened, was that those who were outside of the church were more willing to take care of me and my family than those who were in the church. And perhaps you've experienced something similar from time to time, and I pray that you haven't. Because I think we foster a good, loving community that we have right here. But nevertheless, this command to love one another, it's needed. It's not something to just kind of brush aside and say, well, that's a given. It's not enough to say, well, the community and the love is already here, so I don't have to work to participate in it. We start taking it for granted, and the second we start taking it for granted is the second that it's not truly here. The apostles, God Himself would tell us time in and time again to love one another. We can see that very pointedly shown to us there in Romans chapter 12. Romans chapter 12. Let's just look at this for just a moment. Romans chapter 12, there in verses 9 through 18. And it shows the true marks of Christianity is what the subheading has here. To where it says, let love be genuine. Meaning, let it be true. Let it be void of deceit. Meaning that when we're seeking to love one another, it's not so that I can get something out of the other. It's not so that there's these nefarious and deceptive things that are going on when we're showing love. No, it's to be genuine, meaning undefiled, pure. That is the type of love that God commands of each and every one of us. It says, abhor what is evil. So again, righteousness and love, they're not opposing ideas. Because as I've noted before in the 1 John class on Wednesday nights, so many people will forgo righteousness in lieu of love. Of saying, well, I can't hold people to a righteous standard because I have to be loving to them. Well, that's not how the Bible denotes it. That truly loving somebody is holding them to a righteous standard. Because it goes, let love be genuine, abhor that which is evil. These are not opposing and contradictory terms. No, they are in complete unison together. Because to truly love somebody is also to truly abhor evil. And it goes on, hold fast to what is good. Love one another with brotherly affection. Outdo one another in showing honor. You see that term? Outdo one another in showing honor. So just inasmuch as we last week all said amen to the fact that we need to be showing honor to all men, all people, guess what? Christians are included in that. We need to be showing honor and respect to all people. Everyone. And yes, that even includes the preacher and his wife. It includes everyone here to be showing honor. And again, what is showing honor? It means to offer them your best, not just your worst. And it says to be outdoing them. Because that's the love that is to be abounding. That whenever you show me honor, then I am to seek to outdo you in that and show it back to you. And then it becomes this reciprocal thing. It is this wonderful thing that begins as a cycle, and it happens again and again and again. This is what we need to be doing after the election. You see, last week we talked about honoring all people and the vital importance of that, especially after the election, of what is the Christian's responsibility after the election. So number one, yes, it is to honor all people, as we saw last week. And now this week, the second thing that we need to do is to love the brotherhood. We need to love the church. Because this right here is going to be the lighthouse that stands on the hill. This right here is going to be the determining factor of how people out there in the world see us. After the election, are they going to see us divided? After the election, are they going to see us standing on one of two political hills and firing vitriol attacks at each other? Or are we going to stand on love? Or are we going to stand at Calvary? Are we going to stand with the cross? Are we going to stand with Christ and Him crucified, that truly all we see in here is not political lines, but Christ? That we see Jesus here. Because that's truly what's going to be the testimony to the world. That's what's going to bear witness to the world. The world truly does not care about your political leanings. They care in as much as it agrees with them, yes. But what they truly care about is, are you a hypocrite or not? That's what they're looking for. Especially whenever you meet somebody who's coming in for the first time, they're going to be looking around, looking at how I interact with you and how you interact with me to see if what I'm saying right here this morning is hypocritical and how I act later this morning. Because that's what they're looking for. Why? Because they want to see if what we're saying is actually true. You see, Jesus Himself would say that this is the acid test of true Christianity or not. It's by how we love one another. That's John chapter 13 and in verse 34 and 35. A new commandment I give to you, that you are to love one another. And by this all people will know that you are my disciples, by how you love one another. They will know that you are my disciples, not by your political party. They will not know you are a Christian if you're a Republican. They will not know you're a Christian if you're a Democrat. They will know you are a Christian if you love the brotherhood, if you love the church. So that's what we need to seek to be doing. Because far too often have I heard the old poem that goes, "Oh, to be up above with the saints we love, now that will be glory. But here below with the saints we know, now that's a different story." You see, we can't have that mindset. That just inasmuch as we earnestly desire to go up above with all the saints that we love, we should earnestly desire to be here down below with the saints that we love. That there should always be this love here. So let's look at a text this morning to be able to accurately define what the love of the brotherhood looks like. And I want you to turn over to 1 John chapter 3. Truly, it's all the way through verses 11 through 24, but we're going to focus in on 3 specific verses this morning, to where it calls us to love in verses 16 through 18 of 1 John chapter 3, to where it says this, "By this we know love, that He laid down His life for us, that we ought to lay down our lives for the brothers. If anyone has the world's good and sees his brother in need, yet closes his heart against him, how does the love of God abide in him? Little children, do not love in word or talk, but in deed and truth." Little children, do not love in word and talk, but in deed and truth. You see, in these 3 verses right here, we have 3 key points. The first one being, we have love demonstrated. That Christ is the demonstration of love. The second thing we see, we have love demanded of us. That we are called to love one another. And then the third thing that we see is that love is detailed. That it's love in deed and in truth. So right here is what we're going to walk through now. So let's just look at this right here. It first says, by this we know love. That word know there, gnosko, it's the idea of intellectually and experientially we know love. That love is not this abstract concept from us that we fall into and fall out of how the world would define love. The world says they love all sorts of things. Oh, I love ice cream one day, I love pizza the next day. It's just fleeting, ambiguous word. Rather, in the Greek, love is not that. Love is very concrete. And love is something that can be known, seen, heard, and felt. It's reality. So here we know love, and notice how we know it as Christians. Because it says it very simply. We know love that He laid down His life for us. This is what the love that God would have us to have is. The love that Christ has first shown us. This right here is the pinnacle, the top, the standard. So anything that we're falling short of here than the love that Christ has shown us, we're not fulfilling the command that God has given to us. Now, am I saying that you're going to be perfect at it or that I'm perfect at it? Far be it. But what I'm saying is, have you stopped striving for that? If we stop striving for the standard that God has given to us, then we're truly, truly failing. Christ has given us this standard. You see, Romans chapter 5 and verse 8, by this we know the love of God, that yet when we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Now this is the standard of love that we are to give to the brethren. Okay? So notice that. God says that when you were a sinner, when I was a sinner, that's when Christ showed love. Okay. Now, when your brother and sister, they wrong you, they annoy you, they upset you, when do we show love? Do we wait until we're on good terms with them? Do we wait until they've stopped doing the thing that has really been bothering me? Do we wait until all those things have been ironed out on the ironing board of my illogical standards? Or do we love them no matter what? Because by the same standard by which you judge, so too shall you be judged. You see, if God says you're a sinner and I'm going to show you love, then who are we to say, no, my brothers and sisters in Christ, well, they're just to X, Y, or Z. I'm going to wait until they stop doing A, B, and C for me to start showing them love. That's not how the love of God works. No, God calls us to love one another in this manner. For Christ is the one who is demonstrating this love to us. You see, there in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 and in verse 9, it would tell us that we have no need of a teacher to tell us how to love, for God has already taught us how to love. You see, he's writing there saying, I don't need to tell you how to love. The same thing right here. I don't need to tell you X, Y, and Z, this is how you love the brethren, because I'm going to fall short in that. You already have the perfect teacher who has perfectly illustrated and perfectly demonstrated what love is. And that was on the cross. So that is the standard of love that we need to be given to each other, because that is also the standard that is demanded. Notice, as it continues in the text here, it says, by this we know the love of God, that He laid down His life for us. And we ought to lay down our lives for the brothers. And then it goes into it a little bit more, and it says, but if anybody has the world's goods and sees his brother in need, yet he closes his heart against him, how does the love of God abide in him? Meaning, truly, how is he loving? Because he's making the argument from greater to lesser. He says this, that God's love for you and I was that He was willing to lay down His life for us. Not when we were at our best, but when we were truly at our worst. That's when God's love was made manifest upon each and every one of our lives. Okay? So that's the standard now. And then God commands us and demands that same standard of love from us, of saying that we need to be willing to lay down our lives for the brothers. That we need to be willing to lay down our lives for the church. And He's not using hyperbole. He's not using figurative language. It's not just symbolic that we symbolically lay down our lives for the church. No. Because I don't know about you, but I don't want Jesus just to symbolically, figurative, in a hyperbolic language, lay down his life for me. No, I want that very real. I want the reality of his life on that cross. Because then and only then are my sins covered. So then why would we say we want the reality to be Jesus, but then I can just take this figuratively? No. We can't do that. That'd be disingenuous and dishonest to the text. No, we have to honestly look at the text and see that what God is calling us to do is literally give our lives for the church. And at times, that portrays itself in a one-time act. At times, giving your life for the church is like that of Stephen with his martyrdom, to where it's all paid in full in a lump sum. And other times, how you give your life for the church is in quarters. Instead of a one-time check, no, it's in the payment of quarters. Every single day, you're putting in another one, and another one, and another one. You're putting in as much as you can every single day. That's how we give our lives to the church. Not just when you agree, not just when you're happy, not just when they're loving you, no, when they're at their worst too. Meaning that when I'm at my worst, you are to love me. Because God loved you at your worst. And notice he goes into kind of detailing it, of saying that he who has the world's goods and yet sees his brother in need and does not give it to him, how does the love of God abide in him? See, that's the argument of greater to lesser. Of saying that if you're saying that you're willing to give your life for the church, but then you're unwilling to give the base necessities of life to that church, then how do you truly love? You see, it's an argument of greater or lesser. If you're willing to give the greater, and you claim that we're willing to give the greater, then you must also be willing to give the lesser. Because I don't know about you, I've always lived by the mantra that your life is worth more than what's in your wallet. Your life is worth more than any physical possession that you have. Okay? So if you're saying you're willing to give your life for the church, for Christ, then how could we ever say, I'm unwilling then to give my physical possessions for that church, for the brethren? Love the brethren. Now, this is not a call to go and liquidate everything that you have and bring it at the threshold of the church that the elders might delineate it as they see necessary. That's not what this is. No, what this is a call to do is that when you see a brother in need, because that's what the text says. You see a brother. Not that you just hear of a brother in need in a faraway land. No, seeing means that they're in your life. Means that I can physically see you. You can physically see me, and you're able to see them in need. Love them. Don't turn a blind eye to them. Do not just turn your head and act as if they're not there and they're not truly in need. Love them. And again, all of us, I think, would agree to the fact that love is worth more than just possessions, correct? I think all of us would come to that conclusion then. So again, what he is saying here is that if you're unwilling to give possessions, are you truly even able to give actual love? You see, they're connected together here. Love the brethren. Again, this is demanded of us. This is the true acid test of Christianity here. And this is what the world is looking for right now. Because they're looking to be loved. Everybody wants to be loved. And they're looking in all the wrong places, and they're experiencing these tainted and malicious forms of love out there in the world. What are they going to taste when they come in here? What are they going to see when they come into the church? Are they going to see a church that genuinely loves one another? Are they going to see, as Paul would describe to us there in Galatians chapter 5 and verse 13, that we are to be serving one another in love? Are they going to see that we have kept fervent in our love, as 1 Peter chapter 4 and verse 8 would tell to us, saying that first of all, or above all, remain fervent in your love for one another. Is that what they're going to see? Or are they going to see us segregating ourselves based on who we agree with, whether that be politically or just socially, who we agree with and who we like, and we'll show love to them but not anybody else? Or are we going to show love across the board? Because notice, it just says the brotherhood, meaning the church. It doesn't say specific parts of the church. It says the church as a whole. That's what we need to be known for. For how the world is going to know that we're disciples of Christ is by how we love. And that love is not up to you or I to decide what kind of love we need to give, or that I want to give, or that I have a preconceived notion to give. No. As the text clearly says, by this we know love. Meaning that we don't have to make it up from our own imaginations. No, God has demonstrated it, and now He demands it. God has demonstrated it in His Son, and now He demands it of us as sons and daughters of God. Therefore, be imitators of God, as Ephesians chapter 5, verses 1 and 2 would plainly state to us. Because notice that, if you just turn over there, Ephesians chapter 5, verses 1 and 2, therefore be imitators of God, and then it says, very next part, walk in love. Walk in His love. Not my love, not your love, but rather the love that God has first shown to us, which is what? That Christ was willing to lay down His life for us. So too then, if we're going to love the brotherhood, we must be willing to lay down our lives for the brotherhood. Not just in a symbolic sense or figurative sense, but in a very real sense. There's a concreteness to this command. And it says that very next thing because it details this even more. It says, little children, verse 18, let us not love in word or talk, but in deed and truth. Not in word or talk, but in deed and truth. So word and talk there's a lot of times that you will hear, oh, I love the church. I love brother or sister so-and-so, but, and then they'll trail off into it. I think the modern day equivalent of is, oh, bless her heart, but that person is X, Y, and Z. Meaning, I love them, but I despise these things about them. We can't just love in word and in talk. We can't just say, I love you, walk out the doors, and that be it. Because imagine, just for a second, what kind of father would I be if I simply, after all my children are now here, and I look at them this morning, I say, I love you all, and then I leave. That's it. Right? I just leave. Would any of you say that I'm a loving father? No. All of you would say that I am worse than a Gentile. Or I am worse than an unbeliever, for he who does not provide for his own household is worse than the unbelievers. Right? Okay. So, by that very base definition right there, you can't just here this morning say, I love you to your brothers and sisters in the church, and then walk out and do nothing else. Because if you're going to call me an unloving father for that, then you need to take a look in the mirror too, and see, am I doing this to the spiritual children of God? When you say you love a brother or a sister, that's serious. And if you say that, then it has to be backed in deed and truth. So let's walk through that for a second here. Deed. That means you're doing something. That there's actions that are had, seen, and felt by the receiving party. That you're doing something for them. And then the truth there, it's according to what truth? My truth? Your truth? Their truth? No. Again, the truth. So when you're loving someone and you're doing deeds for them, not only does it need to be the deeds that they want or the deeds that you want to give, it's the deeds that God has demanded. It's the deeds that He has outlined in the Scriptures. And that can be as simple as giving a glass of water to somebody or giving somebody a room to stay, all the way up into the point of giving your life for them. That is the love that we as the church must be manifesting. That is the love that is going to be a lighthouse that is set on the hill to draw all people in. That is how people are going to know you're a Christian. It's by how you love one another. So yes, honor all people. But now even deeper than that, love the brethren. Because if you are showing more honor, respect, and by definition love to those who are out there in the world than you give to those who are in here this morning who have been baptized into Christ, been washed with the same blood as you, you're not fulfilling the commandment that God has given to you. By this you know the love of God, by how Christ, yet when we were still sinners, gave Himself for us. You see, if you're not a Christian here this morning and you want to be able to experience this love, and therefore not only just experience the love that God has given to each and every one of us that are Christians here this morning, but then also be able to experience the love of all the Christians here this morning as well, you have that opportunity. You have the opportunity to be buried, to die a death like His, so that you might be buried in a burial like His, so that you may rise to walk in newness of life as He raised to walk in newness of life, as Romans chapter 6, verses 1 through 8 clearly states to us. If you are a Christian here this morning, this is the next thing that you need to do after the election. Number 1, honor all people. Number 2, love the church. If you have any need this morning, I pray that you would come now while we stand and we sing.